Welcome to a special mailbag episode of the It's a Mimic podcast where I, Adam, am sitting down with one of our Patreon subscribers, Andri, who has generously become one of our patrons of Platinum Great Worm tier. That means that he's able to sit down and record an episode with us, and he decided that today we're going to be returning to our conversation on building random tables. But before we get started, Andri, how is Japan? You talked about going in the
Yeah,
Discord, and then nothing happened. And we were like, I guess he's there.
yeah, that's pretty much what happened. Yeah, I went and I just decided to enjoy it. Trying to be as little on social media as I could. It was nice. It was really nice. We didn't do much of what originally planned. We just kind of stayed in the greater Tokyo area, which was nice. I recommend. But I want to go again and like be more in the countryside and such, like experience like the rest of the nation except just Tokyo.
Yeah. Um,
But
well,
I highly recommend going. It is a fun experience.
yeah, it lives up to the hype.
I'd say so. I think the trains are a bit overrated, but I'm also a pretty big guy, and being stuffed like sardines in a train is not exactly my cup of tea.
Yeah, I had to do that for work for a number of years, and I'm not a big fan of trains. So, but no, Robert and Megan also just rave about Japan. It wasn't on my list, but like more and more people are saying it's a place to go. So I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I'd actually go outside of Tokyo. Next time I go, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah. How long were you gone for?
Well, we were 10 days in Tokyo, but the vacation was technically 12 days because
Yeah.
we, of course, being in the middle of the Atlantic, me and my buddies, we had to go a lot further.
What was the occasion like? Why were you going there? Was it
Oh,
just a
this is
bros trip?
this is the funniest story, and you're going to make so much fun of us, and I'm kind of begging for it. So originally, here in that time, around that time, we were going to go on a cruise ship in Sweden, on a heavy metal cruise. So we were going to be drinking beer and listening to heavy metal in a cruise. The tickets fell short, so we didn't get any tickets for that. But we all decided that we still want to go out. We're like, where should we go, boys? I come up with the idea of Italy, something close, like Italy, Slovenia, something in the near the Mediterranean. Then one of my friends says very, very jokingly, by the way, guys, let's go to Japan. And my other friend fucking ran with it. Japan was never the plan. We were gonna go to fucking Sweden and listen to heavy metal, but then I ended up in Japan. Which was fun. It was fun. I'll admit, it was a lot of fun. It wasn't what I had planned, but we found stuff to do. I went to for my birthday because my birthday was out there. I went to a whiskey library, which was a lot of fun.
That sounds phenomenal.
Oh, it was just looking at just the walls. It was full of whiskey, and I got to drink so much whiskey. It was so much fun.
How drunk did you get?
I actually didn't become that drunk because you would just get like a shot of a bottle because it was more like a tasting. It wasn't like you're gonna get slammed there.
Oh,
So I
so the
just
fact
I
that you're in your early 20s doesn't hurt.
well that helped. um excuse me. But yeah, had a wagyu steak there as well, which was fucking
Oh,
phenomenal.
yeah, that's something that's on my bucket list.
If you go to Tokyo, I recommend that place. It was actually really nice.
Yeah, it's fun to go to a place that's, not on your radar, and then you get to just kind of go in with zero expectations and see what happens.
Yeah.
I did that last year. Dave and Sean took me for my bachelor party out to Vegas, and I'm
Oh
on
yeah.
record as saying I have no interest in going to Vegas. I like it does not interest me in the least. I'm not into strippers. I'm not into gambling. Like
Yeah.
I like poker, I like blackjack, but I'd rather do it at my friend's kitchen table than right than lose 300
Absolutely.
bucks sitting
Yeah.
there with people that are taking it way too seriously. But that being said, some of like we were there, I think 4 days, and it was the wildest time. I enjoyed it so much. And like
Nice.
I only think that I was like drunk for like 3 hours out of the whole trip. But I
Oh
don't
yeah.
think I was sober at all.
No,
So
yeah. That was my we have in Icelandic every well in Iceland every time any like Icelandic lad like the boys when we go out to another country, we're always in a percentage, we call it.
In the
We're
percentage. I'm gonna
yeah.
steal that. That's amazing. I love
E,
that.
in Icelandic, it's e prosentunin, which just means literally in the percentage. So you're not sober, but you're riding a constant buzz.
That's a phenomenal phrase. I love it. And that was me. Yeah. We got off the airplane and I went to the airport bar. And then
Yeah, I
with the
mean, what else
exception
do you
of
do?
with the exception of waking up in the morning, but I mean, I'm not joking. It was wake up, go to the fridge in the hotel room, grab a beer and go back
Oh,
into bed and drink. Right. And so I was just
phenomenal.
I
It,
was buzzed the whole time. It was phenomenal.
I do that every time, almost every time. The few times I don't do that is when I'm visiting family. But that's only like once a year when I visit family. Usually I go to like Denmark to my utter dismay, or this time in Japan where the alcohol was dirt fucking cheap and I was riding a constant buzz.
Oh, see, for my family, you have to be drunk because how else are you going to deal with those assholes? So
See, I do that with my Icelandic family.
all right, let's jump into the
Yeah.
random tables of the day. It's been a while since we've talked about random tables, so
Yes.
I'm going to give a quick refresher here for anybody. If you would like to go back and listen to it, it was episode W15, and you can find it on all the public channels. So first of all, it's worth pointing out that random tables are random for the players, are not random for the DMs. We are very much in control of the tables. So it's not random when we create it, and there is some logic behind it. For example, if it was a truly random table, you would have just a wild array of random bullshit happening across all 20 or 12 or 10 of your options, however big the table is, right? Um, and sometimes when you get like a trinkets table in one of the published modules, it is just randomized bullshit all the way through it.
Yeah.
But when you're coming up with a random table yourself for your players, you should remember that rolling high is what the players want to do. It feels good to get a 20 on a d20 or a 10 on a d10. So, and it feels bad whenever you roll a 1, right? Like, oh shit, I rolled a 1, what's going to happen? So it's best to have it on a scale of best at the highest number to worst at a 1, right? And that's just a way that we let the dice handle the random. We don't do that so that we can still provide the appropriate experience that the players are expecting.
Yeah.
And remember, when we're building a random table, as much as like if you're coming up with like a loot table or a trinket table, it's a little bit different, but for the most part, everything happens for a reason. Even on some loot tables, everything happens for a reason. It has to make logical sense within the world. If you open up a door in the bottom of a pirate ship, like you found the secret compartment, and inside of it is, and you've got written down 3 naked halflings and a beholder, there'd better be a reason for that, right? You can't just throw that shit in because it's wacky and whatever, and we'll see what happens. Especially because your players are likely to roll that number again at some point. And while that might be fine for a random bandit attacks on the side of the road, how many times can you find 3 naked halflings and a beholder before you're like, what the fuck is this random table about? Why is this happening in our world? Right? There needs to be some sort of a logic behind the decisions that are made when you build a random table. We also need to keep an eye on intensity of issues. Sometimes when we have a D20 table that we want to fill out with knolls, we're going across a knoll landscape and we're going to see a bunch of stuff that are going to be related to knolls. Putting down one knoll, we fight one knoll, or it's a scout or whatever, is fine as one entry. But then you can have a scouting party with 5 knolls. And then later you can have a raiding party with 10 knolls, right? And then you can have a war band, right? And now you've got 35 knolls and they're all, high powered and you've given them max hit points and stuff. Having the same creature, but with multiple entries is entirely valid, even when it's weird one-off creatures. Like, yeah, you put a roper on your random table, that's cool. Have you ever been in a place with 2 ropers? That would be fucking scary. I think that is more than the CR would suggest, because you're going to split the party like crazy with 2 ropers. And that will be memorable too, because your players will be panicked because they'll think they're fighting one and then a second pops up, right? So increasing quantities and having multiple entries is an okay factor here. Another thing too is if you've got a percentile table, for example, because you're hell bent on having 17% of your table has to be about town guards, right? Which, I mean, sure, okay, that's fine. But you can have, if you roll a 2 to 5, it's town guards. And you see this within the published materials all the time, where they'll take percentage tables and they'll manipulate the likelihood of the odds of you rolling a specific answer. But when we build our tables, we build a D20 table and everything has a 5% chance, right?
Yeah.
We don't need to do that. That's not how the game designers do it. But we see 20 options. We want to do 20 options, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We talked in the last episode about the different encounter tables. And you got to remember that they are informed by the environment. And they're kind of part of the environment if it's a random table. It's not set piece encounters. It's the random shit that happens on the way to the set piece encounter, right? So they should never be super deadly or deadly at all, in my opinion. What they should be is fun, unique, interesting, memorable, and a way to eat up resources. That's their purpose. It's not to challenge the players in the long run, it's to start worrying about attrition in the short term, right? When you have a whole bunch of random encounters for like ship travel and whatnot, I would not have shipwreck on that list.
Yeah.
That's a bad idea. But 2 barrels get thrown overboard, or we come across a derelict ship or something. Yeah, that could happen a couple of times, and it's not going to completely derail the mission that we're on. That's just part of the scenery. Even Sahuagin attacking 3 or 4 times, that's just part of the scenery of going through Sahuagin waters, right? That's not the island we're trying to get to find the MacGuffin. So I have some more complex thoughts about that when we're dealing with a hex grid and rolling randomly to find out what's in hexes, especially if it's a massive hex grid and you're trying to find the temple and you're using random tables to determine where it is, like you haven't plotted it out, we're just going to see when it pops up. That's a bit different. But for the most part, I'd keep my set piece encounters separate from my random tables.
Yeah.
It's also worth thinking about the fact that most encounters or most things that you'll roll should trigger even if the party isn't there. The orcs would still walk through this area. The adventurers pack would still be there. The unmarked grave is still there. The lightning striking the tree would still happen. These are things that you're reacting to as a party. That's why they're random. You don't have control over it. You might get control as a player on how to interact with it. As you're coming down the long, winding forest road, you can see in the distance a cloaked traveler heading towards you. That's a random encounter. It's not random when they start to have their agency inform what's going to happen next. Right. So most random encounters are a setup. Here is a scenario for you to deal with. Right. So I don't think we talked too much about that in the previous episode, but I feel like it's worth pointing out that it's important to realize that your random encounters are not outcomes. They are scenarios based on the environment and what makes logical sense here.
Yeah.
I've broken it up into 6 different kinds of encounters and then one extra one. Combat, exploration, and role-playing, but I've split role-playing into both strangers and allies. If you're traveling with mounts, familiars, NPCs, followers, guides, whoever it is, these are allies working with you. And you can have a random encounter table to find out what happens while interacting with these things on the road. I've used this to great success in my own campaigns where my players will roll for a random encounter while they're, taking watch at night. And I will just have on the allies table the word secret. And if they roll it, I think Casey did this last time. She was taking watch with an ally because they always want to double up. I give them enough NPCs to do that. And the ally started to divulge some personal secrets about their backstory in their life. And it drew her in to this NPC. She built a little bit of a relationship. Now she's got an opinion about them. And the next time that they're threatened in a skirmish that breaks out, she will defend them. They become important. Ooh. Right. So strangers tend to be kind of hostile some of the time. Allies tend not to be. So the other encounter tables that I tend to draw up are items and omens, and then of course dynamic encounters. And for dynamic encounters, I usually just have a little sheet that says combat to combat, combat to exploration, exploration to role playing, all that stuff. If you listen to any of the campaign builder, the first 30 episodes are on the public channels. Everything else is on the Patreon. We get into dynamic encounters a bunch, and it's nice to be able to have your combat and items crash together. Whenever I get a dynamic random encounter, I just roll on 2 tables and I just see what happens, right? So that way, combat plus magical item means the enemy is going to end up with a magic item that is going to be more powerful or something, right? So
Yeah.
it's just a little bit more fun that way. When it comes to encounter tables as well, it's worth to point out, especially for exploration and combat, day versus night, it's going to matter a whole lot more. I also think this is true of your role playing, but to a lesser degree, just because people act differently at night. When you share a campfire with someone, it's a whole lot different than walking down the road with them, right?
Yeah.
There's an intimacy there that you might not otherwise have. So oftentimes I'll write up a day versus a night for each one of my environments or what combat is. And remember, at night, your monsters should be sneakier because those are the ones that are out there. They should have
Yeah.
dark vision and they should be a little bit deadlier than your daytime encounters, right? Unless you're dealing with like T-Rexes or something. But
Well, fucking T-Rexes is deadly in any fucking time of day.
but I don't think T-Rexes hunt at night, right? So
I mean, we could go on a whole paleontology rant about what they did because even the paleontologists can't agree what the fuck the T-Rex did.
that is absolutely fair, but when we live in a fantasy world and some things have
Yes.
dark vision and other things don't,
Yes.
I lean on the dark vision for nighttime, right? So
I mean, and that makes logical sense.
if the paleontologists could take dark vision into consideration, we would all be better. Also, when it comes to anything that deals with combat or strangers or items or anything, you have to be aware of the differences between martial characters and spellcasters, because spellcasters, especially like with crit tables, spellcasters often don't roll on crit tables because they're not rolling to hit as often as they're making other people roll to save. But a martial character rolls more frequently on a crit table, which means they'll be rewarded more, or on a critical failure table, they'll be punished more. Which means, well, the way that I do it is I make the martial crit tables a little bit more forgiving than the spellcaster ones, so that when spells go off in unique and critical ways, it's bombastic. But when they fail, you done fucked up big, right?
Yeah.
So not big, not you accidentally killed a barbarian in the party, but like you just used up 3 additional spell slots of the highest level that you have. That fucking hurts, right? Like you're not going to cripple a character if they can get a rest in. So
yeah, I was about to say it depends on the fucking campaign.
So let's talk about the kinds of random tables. Like I broke it down into the kind of encounter tables, but here are all the different kinds that exist. Critical tables for marshals and critical tables for spellcasters. Failure tables for marshals and failure tables for spellcasters. I'm also debating in my own game separating arcane from the divine so that my critical tables and crit failures will impact my spellcasters in godly ways or in ways that they interact with the weave. So I'm toying with that idea, but I'm not sold on it yet. NPC tables. So when you come across a random NPC, I tend not to use those because I just super prep, but I know a lot of people do. Loot tables, combat encounters. Combat encounters are always starting off hostile. That's what makes them combat, right? As opposed to stranger encounters, which start off role playing and often leads into combat, right? So it's about your initial state, and it depends on how the players interact with the situation. You can calm a combat down and stop it and fall out of initiative by talking, but that rarely fucking happens in D&D. So we consider them, if it starts with combat, it's a combat encounter. Exploration encounters, and then of course allies, items, and I mentioned omens before. I tend to make dream tables, but I will make omen tables as well. I just consider that to be kind of the same thing.
Yeah, we made a dream table last time.
Yes, and it was a lot of fun. But the more you do it, the more difficult it is to maintain creativity while staying consistent and hitting different notes. So like you got to be kind of generic while on the table and be ready to improv on the spot to make it specific to this person that happened to roll it.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've got a couple of tables that we want to build today, which is why I just kind of sped through the others.
Yeah.
You said you wanted to do exploration and combat, and I said, "Great. What are the actual locations where we're going to do that? Because it's going to be very different if it's underwater or urban, right?"
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
and you said forest and mountains. So we're going to do an exploration and a combat for each. I'm going to recommend we do daytime exploration because nighttime exploration tends to be a little bit more difficult to do. And I tend to do it on
Yeah.
smaller tables because my guys don't go exploring at night. They hunker down, right?
I mean, that is the smarter thing to do, personally. You hunker down at night.
Well, I mean, unless you're sneaking in behind enemy lines, if you've got to
Yeah,
get
I
through.
think that might be one of the few exceptions. If you're trying to sneak, you are as at much of a disadvantage as they are because they don't see you, but you kind of know where they are.
Yeah. But if you're in the forest at night, they see you better than you see them.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So, so we're going to do combat for each as well. And again, I tend to do daytime versus nighttime, but I didn't figure which one. Do you want to do combat at day during the day or combat at night?
I mean, I'd say we're going to do it in the day. My party tends to travel a lot more during the day as well. So, and
And
they
that's
usually I there was an exception actually just in the session I was just DMing. I did a night encounter.
well, see, and this is when it comes to random tables, I tend to have my mentality be during the daytime, the
Yeah,
party is equally as likely as coming across whatever the random thing is. So
yeah,
they've got about a 50-50 of being the inciting factor here, just by like walking into an area or by noticing a thing, right?
yeah,
But at night, the things come to you, right? Because you're
yeah.
not doing too much of exploring or anything. If you light a fire, things will come to you.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I did a Knoll encounter just before, and because I could, I absolutely played a hyena soundtrack of them just laughing, and then I described their eyes getting closer, and then some of the eyes stood up, let's say.
That's a lot of fun. That's terrifying as well when those eyes suddenly move up to like 7 feet tall.
Yeah, exactly.
So when we look at our forest and our mountains, you've got in your world that we built, because we built the kingdom and we talked about the city and everything else.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that we're back in this location when we're building.
Yes.
Okay. So the forest is kind of a fey forest, and the mountains are orcish. It's like orc versus Goliath, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So which one do you want to cover first? Do you want to do forest or mountain?
Let's cover the forest.
And you want to do exploration or combat first?
Let's go exploration. Probably by far weakest pillar.
Okay, so for exploration, we're going to start where we've got our table laid out. I'm going to be typing as we go so that we fill this in, and
Yeah.
then I can send it to you afterwards, Andri, just like last time.
Yeah,
Um,
like we've always done. I enjoy
yeah,
that.
but 12 will be the best possible outcome on the table. 1 will be the worst possible outcome on the table,
Yes.
right? Which is not to say the worst outcome in the world, but on this table compared against the other options. So,
Yeah.
first of all, how deadly do you want this to be?
Well, I'm not saying like kill the party in one, but putting the fear of God into them would be a lot of fun.
Keeping in mind that if you're going to have something like an avalanche, that tends to be something you plan ahead of time, right?
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
so these will be scenarios that could lead to deadly things if the players fuck around and find out,
Yes.
but aren't necessarily deadly, right? So if
Yeah.
they just passively or correctly interact with them. I think we're going to aim for tier 2. It's always best to build random tables in tier 2 because I find that by tier 4, you're probably not doing a whole lot of random tables, right?
No.
Unless like loot or something.
Yeah.
And in tier 1, random tables can just wipe a party out by accident.
Yeah.
And so when we look at tier 2 and tier 3, it's easier to beef up tier 2 just by adding more creatures or more intense environments for the exploration pillar. It's harder to like, oh, it's a waterfall. No, wait, that's too intense for you guys. It's a short waterfall. Right? Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't hit the same way as the waterfall that I've got written down here. It's a waterfall. Oh, this waterfall is 900 feet tall, right? That's okay. I can do that. That's a fantastical world thing. I can beef up. I can say, hey, you know what? I've got written down here 4 goblins. That's not enough for tier 3. 44 goblins. Okay, now that's a fucking problem, right? So it's easier to beef up than pare down when you're on the fly, right? Exploration for a Fey forest. In my opinion, I would have the number 1 and 2 on the table be a proper hazard. Number 3 through 6, because we're going to do a D12 table.
Yes.
If I can be honest, I like to do D12 tables and smaller tables more often than large tables so that I can cycle through ideas and options instead of having a D20 table that we roll on over and over and over again, and they always roll an 11. Why?
Right?
So for the D12 table we're working on, 1 and 2 should be hazardous, 11 and 12 should be beneficial, and then we should have an interspersing between like 3 and 10 of things that are natural and things that are magical, like magical nature, because it's a Fey forest, right? It's a forest infected by the Feywild. So what do we want to put on this first? Do we want to focus on the benefit, the negative, or the magical, the natural? What do you want to start with?
The beneficial encounters.
Okay, so in a Fey forest, you will have things that are like well springs. The beneficial things that players are looking for are going to be things that either re-up their character sheets or re-up their gear.
Yeah.
Right? And because we don't want to focus on any creatures when we're doing exploration, it can be something like in the wake of a creature, like you might find, for example, a dinosaur footprint, right? Or dragon scales that have been shed, right? Or something like that. Evidence of a creature, sure, but not the creatures themselves, because that will be for strangers or combat, right?
Yeah.
So for benefits, we should look at either re-upping their character sheet or re-upping their gear. You're in the middle of the forest, so it's hard to re-up gear, so I'm looking at the character sheet first.
Yeah.
And let's look at a couple of mechanics that might be that might not be necessarily obvious. A lot of people will have you run across a flower that if you eat it, you gain this amount of hit points.
Yeah.
Sure, right? You find a natural good berry plant. Sure, these are not bad answers, but let's think outside the box.
I immediately thought about like just a random fucking hot spring that like it kind of like heals you like similar to a good berry, but I'm not saying like precisely like a good berry. Do you see where I'm kind of going with it?
What about it removes condition effects and exhaustion?
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, that one. I like that. I like that a lot.
And this is where I could have something like, because it's a Fey forest, how are they going to know that? They're going to come across a hot spring and go, okay, neat. Unless they're going to take a short rest there because we're all poisoned and we need help, right? Then they're not going to figure this out.
Well, no, there's obviously going to be a naked satyr in there.
I was going to say you could have a naked satyr sitting in there, but now we're focusing on strangers a little bit as well. It might be beneficial if I was going to do this to have something like a poem written on a rock that's kind of in an older script. You can only read it in Sylvan, and it tells the healing properties of this.
Yeah.
Right. Something like that. Look, Naked Satyr is a great freaking idea. And that's, you said that and I went, memorable encounter. I would probably write that instead of it being a random encounter, because I want to figure out who the satyr is and what's his deal and how friendly is he. Is he a swindler as well? Right.
Oh, he probably is.
Would he sit there and say, I can absolutely heal you of all these things for a minimal fee? Just come sit in the hot springs with me. I'll put my hands on you and you'll be healed in 10 minutes, right? But it's actually the hot spring doing all the work and he's just getting gold out of it, right? So
yeah, or he's like, because he's Fey, he's a lot trickier than that. He just wants, the classic your name and now you're bound to him. But I feel like gold is maybe a bit more forgiving since this is supposed to be a beneficial.
I was also thinking about something along the lines of I'm trying to think about what's weird magical nonsense that is beneficial to the party. I mean, we could recover spell slots. We could I'm trying to think about beneficial. It's so easy to just go to hit points.
It really is.
You
But
know
what
what?
a- what about like a slight boost in your or a temporary boost in your charisma or wisdom, going for the stats, something like that, or you have advantage on, let's say, persuasion or deception because these are Fae, because Fae deal with in this type of shit.
But how do we tie that to the environment? Because is it only like during this time of day, or because I mean that's weird face shit, right? Is playing with time,
Yeah.
or when you are directly in a sunbeam, or like what? How does that trigger without just giving them this massive boost for the entire time they're in the forest, right?
Yeah.
They have to randomly come upon it, and so it's got to be fleeting as well. It could just be a flower that boosts one mental stat of your choice when eaten,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
The druids and the rangers would know that. That doesn't sound as fun or fantastical, but I bet the players would fucking love to come across that. So a flower that, when consumed, what was the words I just said?
You're asking the
Let's
wrong.
say gives advantage on charisma checks, like you were saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Saying what you said, you're asking the wrong person, my guy. I am diagnosed with like 15 types of ADHD. It feels.
All right, so those are the two like clearly beneficial ones.
Yes.
Let's go to the really negative ones, and we should balance
Oh.
the intensity against what we have at the, because it's not fair if it's like just gonna kick you in the teeth simply because, right?
Yeah.
So the worst thing, I think it should sap a quicksand that every time that you enter it or you start your turn in it, you lose a spell slot.
Oh, but that only really hurts the spellcaster though.
But it is, yeah, okay. All right, how about it
No, I
saps?
mean, I'm not saying the idea is bad. I'm just realistically on I mean, I don't know how your tables are, but I usually just have like one proper spellcaster at a table.
Oh, everybody at my tables have multi-classed or started off as spellcasters. So when
Oh,
they play
the
Dungeons and
one.
Dragons, they want to play Magic. So,
Understandable.
so that's more universal. You raise a good point. So let's instead sap one hit die
Yes,
out of your
that's
pool.
yeah. Yes. Imagine that you're low level or like tier 2 and you're like really need that hit die. Then no, you don't have that hit die. Fuck you.
All right. What is another thing that is detrimental? That's we have advantage on charisma checks. What about pollen in the air that gives you disadvantage on Constitution saves?
Oh yes, you just get a fucking pollen allergy. Fuck yeah, bro. You just have hay fever for an X amount of hours.
Right.
Oh, I know that some of my players, because some of them have hay fever. They try to play a fantasy game where they're not when they don't have to sneeze every time they smell a flower, but then no, fuck you.
And now we get to the fun part because all the stuff in the middle is going to just be we're going to have 4 natural occurring forest things and 4 magically occurring forest, like
Yeah.
almost areas or objects that we're going to run across. So I think that it should very clearly be number 3 should be the magical thing, which is a portal to the Feywild.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. That seems fitting.
So we'll do all of the odd ones are magical and all the even ones are natural. So it's easier to start at the top and work our way down. So what is the best natural thing that they are focused on, like that they're going to come across? What about a deep dark cave in the forest with the inside of a sparkling geode?
Okay, yeah.
Right? Like it's still fey, but it's natural. There's nothing magic here, right?
Yeah.
Let's focus on the natural stuff because if we're focused on that, we can just like whittle our way down.
Yeah.
Anything else? What's another thing? Look, you're a tour guide. You deal with the natural world.
Adam, I'm a tour guide on the top of the glacier, not in the middle of a fucking forest.
Actually, yeah, there you go. What about a random snowstorm in a concentrated area?
Yeah, well, that's actually kind of funny. Yeah, I've had some of those before. I mean, on the fucking Discord, I sent in what the Christmas day looked like. It was just a fucking snowstorm.
It was pretty funny. I was laughing at you because I looked outside and it was kind of drizzling, pretty warm. I didn't even wear a jacket. I went over to my mom's house and like I didn't even wear a jacket between the car and the.
Bro, I fucking hate it here sometimes.
All right. We have 2 more naturally occurring things. I think it's fine to come across a water source.
Oh, yes. Not. Oh wait, naturally. Yeah, yeah. Hold on. I got an idea for the magic bit, so I'll hold it. I'll remember it. Don't worry.
No, 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 hit me now before you lose it.
Oh, I'm thinking like because this was supposed to be a different episode, but I didn't get my hands on a incredibly niche book about Icelandic elves. I'm thinking like just a big ass fucking boulder that is like a pixie church.
Okay.
And like
That's
this is okay. A small backstory about like because I'm deriving this out of Icelandic folklore. Pixie, because elven churches in Iceland are like the thing you avoid here. Like you don't want to be fucking with these things.
I'm going to write down an empty Fey shrine or church.
Yeah.
That way, depending on what kind of creatures they run into in the forest, whether it's sprites or darklings or red caps or whatever it is, you can tie it to whatever like, oh, hey, and we found an empty shrine or church, which looks like it gets active use. They're just not using it now, right?
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Okay, so back to the natural world water source.
Water source. Yeah, I agree. A water source is going to be pretty important. And
how about a waterfall that flows upwards?
It's a natural world.
Well, it's still got to be Fey, right? Like,
yeah, okay, yeah, I suppose, yeah, okay, that's fair enough.
Right. When we look at the magical entries that we have so far, it's a portal and a shrine. Like these are magical as opposed to a snowstorm or a cave or whatnot, right? The waterfall doesn't give magical properties. It just moves backwards. And it's not even that it flows upwards necessarily. It's just moving backwards in time.
Yeah, okay. I'm trying to imagine it. That's difficult to imagine, but that's funny.
And then I think the last one can be something relatively simple, like clearing with a number of fairy rings.
Yeah. Oh my god.
All right, so that only gives us two more things to come up with for exploration. Two magical things right in the middle. If they roll a 5 or a 7.
I mean, I feel like a talking tree is pretty Fey-ish. The Fey just decided to awaken a tree.
I would consider that a stranger table, though, because
yeah, actually, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, you're just gonna end up in a conversation, right?
Yeah. See, I've just been a DM for 4 years. You've been DM for longer than I've been alive. So.
Well, and also, I'm kind of splitting hairs. If someone wanted to put this on an exploration table, that's perfectly fine. But for our purposes, I'm trying.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, because there are some people, like including myself, that would look at a D20 table and go, it's not entirely exploration. It's close enough, and I've only got 17 things, and I'm done writing this fucking table. So, magical things. What about instead of like an awakened tree? Because I'm caught on this idea now. What about a small tree, like migration?
Ooh, yeah. I like that. Trees are just the fucking Fangorn forest is moving against Isengard all of a sudden.
Yeah, and the players can choose to follow them, and then you can be like, all right, I have no idea where they're going or what they're doing. We'll figure it out by the time we get there, right? But like,
fuck, they weren't supposed to follow them. Oh well.
Yeah, right. That could be a cool little like skill challenge to not get trampled, or it could be like these are the paths you've been following, weird little game trails that don't make sense for the last couple of days, and now you're seeing it's the trees moving that are making them, and it's not a game trail at all. Like it could just be shit like that, right?
Yeah.
What about a like some sort of totem or like a little like idol or something that is clearly sitting in a sunbeam to some archfey?
Okay, yeah, I like that. That's actually rather fitting for
I'm gonna put down that it's an immovable.
Oh yeah, so that I like that.
That way it's the space that like this area that holds significance, and not them just grabbing a random item going, I'm going to identify this later and see what it does, right?
Yeah, no, this is not going anywhere.
So now that we're done exploration, let's stay in the forest. Let's look at combat for a moment.
Yeah,
we've got a pretty interesting forest here. And when we look at combat, we've got to look at, for the Fae specifically, we've got the good guys and the bad guys. But this is going to be true when we deal with any area, right? Like there are good guys, there are bad guys that live in each environment. just skipping ahead for a second, we're going to talk about the Orcish Mountains in your world. We also know there
Yes.
are Goliaths there, right?
Yeah.
But we're not fighting the Goliaths, so the Goliaths do not go on the combat table.
Yeah. Well, not unless you do something wrong. You're not fighting the Goliaths.
Yeah, exact. But I'm not putting random Goliaths on a combat
Yeah.
table. Like
Yeah.
that's going to be they fucked up a set piece. Like
Yeah. They're more like Goliaths are more like strangers or allies table.
exactly. Yeah. So
Or maybe even exploration. You come upon like a fucking Goliath ritual or something. Even then, that might be stranger ally table, not even exploration.
yeah. So when we look at this for Fae, you'll notice that I wrote down all of the. There's not fucking many Fae in fifth.
No, and it's a fucking crime. Honestly, it's such a crime. There's so much rich folklore in the world to take inspiration from.
And it is completely undermined. Like, which not no, not undermined, but they have not mined it enough for
Yeah.
inspiration, right? So you can see that I wrote down notes down below the CR and the 13 different Fey creatures that exist.
Yeah.
But included in this list are satyrs, sprites, and pixies.
Yeah.
And dryads. These are all good guys, unless you've got an angry dryad or territorial sprites, right? Like I don't think you're fighting a satyr.
No, I mean, I don't think you're fighting a dryad either, unless you're burning down the forest, or the dryad holds you responsible for the current forest fire.
So I'm gonna delete these off the list.
Yeah, I can wholeheartedly agree.
So that leaves us now with 9 options. The one option that's not on the list that I always feel should be Fey, and it's weird that it isn't, is Centaur.
It didn't. They aren't they? Isn't this the weird thing? Aren't they Fey as a playable race, but a monstrosity as a creature type?
I can look it up.
I'm pretty sure that's how it is, or at least it was before one D&D or multiverse. What the fuck is that book called again?
Yeah, the Monsters of the Multiverse.
Yeah, there it is. I always call it Multiverse of Madness because I just
you and everybody else.
Yeah.
Centaurs, yeah, their creature type is Fey.
Yeah, which is the strangest thing. Why is the player race Fey, but the creature type as an opponent or a creature is a monstrosity? It doesn't make any fucking sense.
I think that it is because it got changed partway through. But I'm just glad neither of them are humanoids. I'm going to say this. It's the same thing with the Minotaurs being 2 different sizes when you want to play them, and Centaurs are 2 different sizes.
Look, there's a lot of oversight in D&D.
Well, my concept is that whatever the god is that created them, created 2 versions. The big, scary version that was created when they were angry, and the calm, quiet, introspective, intelligent version that is medium-sized that can interact with all the other humanoids that were created when the god was calm. And so that is how that's my headcanon. But I mean, I'm reverse engineering.
Minotaur is supposed to be made by Baphomet, but whatever the fuck his name is, Baphomet.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't he a demon prince? I don't see him making a calm creature personally.
While that's true, maybe he tried to make them evil and failed the first time.
I mean, yeah, I suppose you could look at it that way. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that perspective.
So when we're looking at the Fae, we've got 9 options here. Most of them are tier 1 creatures.
Yeah.
Right. Again, when we're looking at combat, we're going, the hardest is the 1 and the easiest is the 12, right? So how do you do this? What do you want to lean on? Because we've got most of them are intelligent, but then you get into like Yeth Hounds, Mean Locks, and Blink Dogs, which are all intelligent, but they're more beast like.
Yeah, exactly.
And Chorids tend to be in rocky areas. Darklings tend to be underground.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't even know what the fuck a Chorid is. Hold on, let me.
Chorids are these small-sized little fucking. They look like traditional lawn gnomes without the hat.
These fuckers.
Yeah, their skin is gray and they look like they can camouflage and blend in with the stone. And but they love hair, and they use their hair, their long hair, as a weapon.
Yeah, I'm seeing a picture of it. They're just hard satyrs. That's what they look like. Not in the way that satyrs would be hard, but like rock hard satyrs.
The thing about Chorids that I like is that in my world, this is a little off topic, in my world, the only thing they want to do is eat hair. And every time that they eat it, their hair, like if they eat 6 inches of hair, their hair will grow by that length. Like the same
Oh,
number of strands will grow by that same length. And their only goal in life is to have the longest, most luscious hair.
it's actually really funny.
So, but it's hard to eat all of the hair off of a creature because they include like the hair on the top of your knuckles. They like include the hair in your lower back. Like they want all the body hair, so they'll straight up kill you to eat it all,
Yeah.
right?
That's these guys are challenge rating 7. What the fuck?
It's the camouflage. They've got some, yeah, they can be pretty fucking deadly, but they don't really fit in this Fey forest.
No, because like I said, they're rocky. This would be. I mean, we might as well throw them into the fucking mountains because they are rocky. I mean, it's not like the Fey influence stops at the edge of the forest. Like there's gonna be waning influence, surely.
Yeah. So Yeth hounds, red caps, like there are a bunch of stuff that don't really fit the forest theme, even though they're Fey.
Yeah.
But I am looking at the fact that these are all low CR, right?
Aren't giant elk supposed to be fucking Fey or some bullshit like that? I remember I fucking hate giant elk because of this.
Most giant creatures,
beasts.
yeah,
They're
are
fucking
just beasts.
but they understand Sylvan and Elvish. I fucking hate giant elk because of this. They're so infuriating.
So, what CR is a giant elk?
I have it in front of me. They are a CR rating of 2.
Well, we could have a herd of giant elk as a combat encounter, a herd of
Yeah.
stampeding giant elk.
I mean, they're supposed to be like, because I mean, why not just make them like fucking Fey? Because they understand Elvish and Sylvan. Like, I don't understand.
So I threw them in. I threw them in at number 10 on our list.
Yeah, I like that.
But I'm gonna actually stick it at number 3 because I think that we can add a bunch of them. I've got a herd, and I'm gonna put in brackets 6.
Yeah.
Because that's scary.
I mean, 6 huge beasts with fuck all antlers charging towards you. I mean, they have a charge maneuver here. I mean, it's not nothing to scoff at. Like this will fuck up a level 1 or 2, 3 party because it's a DC 14 strength saving throw. You're prone and take an X amount of damage.
Right, but when we're dealing with our tier 2 party of levels 6 through 10 ideally, but let's say like average parties tend to exist for a long period of time between levels 6 and 8. That seems to be the sweet spot for a lot of people. So you're likely to play in that for a decent amount of time. And these things would fuck up a party, eat up some health and some spell slots.
Yeah.
But they're not going to kill the party, right?
Well,
because you got to think too, it's a herd. By the time you've killed 3 of the 6 of them, the other 3 are going to retreat.
I mean, and even though it's not like they're going to stay, they're stampeding, so they're going to just run through you realistically.
Unless
they're probably running from something scarier than the party, according to them.
Well, or they're charging the shiny armor on the paladin.
Oh yeah, I definitely, I can see that happening, as well.
So let's look at some of the other creatures that we want to deal with. I feel like boggles are interesting and a fun little combat, and you could drop like 4 or 5 of them in. They'll eat up some time in your encountering day, or in your adventuring day, but they're not going to be a real threat.
Oh, these guys. Yeah.
I actually really like boggles. I think they're interesting as all hell, but like if I put down 4, that will annoy the shit out of the players, but they will be able to kill them fairly easily. Boggles are pretty lightweight. So
I mean, they're challenge rating 1/8.
Yeah, I put boggles 4 to 6.
Yeah, I can.
As a 12, that's the easiest one, right?
Yes.
Let's look at the other 1/8. That's the blink dog. Want to do a pack of blink dogs?
I mean, blink dogs. Blink dogs are like so super common pets, though, aren't they?
Yes, but I mean, there are.
I mean, I suppose you could twist it and be like they're more like dingo, like the Australian dingo, more than anything, I suppose.
Well, I've always had them because it's in the lore that they're natural enemies to displacer beasts. So, what about a combat with blink dogs versus displacer beasts? And your
Yeah,
guys
I
get
mean,
caught up in the
how
battle.
the by the way, I used the displacer beast earlier today. They come from like Fey-ish origin. One of the description is unseelie origin.
Don't get me started, Andri. So,
No,
okay,
I know this. Anything regarding the Fey and D&D doesn't make any fucking sense.
I am going to, which I mean, it shouldn't. It's the Fae, but no, it breaks D&D logic. You're right. It
No,
is.
like I mean, absolutely. Like Fae aren't supposed to make sense, but at least try to keep it consistent of not making sense.
Don't get me started on fairy dragons. The problem here that we're dealing with in fifth edition, and I don't know if it's going to be fixed. We don't have the 2025 monster manual yet, right? So,
Yeah.
but my problem here is that they have made it so that creatures only have one creature type.
Yes,
Previous
I remember
editions, they'd
you
have
going on about
multiple,
this.
right? So,
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I'm playing 3.5 in some cases, and I'm seeing that exact thing happening, and it kind of pisses me off now that I see it because Displacer Beast should definitely be Beast slash Fey.
yeah. So I'm actually going to put Blink Dog versus Displacer Beast War as number 4. I think
It's a
number
shit.
1, the thing that's clearly Fey, the thing that we should watch out for if you're going to end up fighting a creature is going to be a treant.
Yeah, in well, hold on. Let me before I say this, let me actually check that out before I yeah. I was gonna say something about the Moonstone Dragon because in the lore they are like in the Feywild,
Yeah.
but they are like neutral. So I don't really see them unless it's a territorial thing.
Well, yeah,
Um,
I'm gonna come back to that. But should we put treant?
yes, I agree. I agree. I agree.
Um, now
Okay,
I
this is where English being my second or third language comes in. What the fuck does incensed mean?
incensed means annoyed, angered, frustrated.
Okay.
It's not enraged.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It is incensed. It is how I feel towards some of my fucking coworkers.
Oh, amen, brother. I'll fucking cheers to that. I would have just thought it was like smoking incense if I wouldn't have asked this.
It feels like it, but no, incensed treant.
Okay, cool.
All right, I wrote down. Should we do a fairy dragon?
I mean, I think a gaggle of fairy dragons can really annoy a party if they really wanted to. You kidding me? Oh, I fucking love fairy dragons because they just know how to grind your gears.
I'm trying to think what a group instead of a gaggle. What would be a good word for a group of fairy dragons? A prank of fairy
Oh, a
dragons.
prank of fairy dragons. That's a good one. Oh, that's a good name for it.
What about territorial centaurs?
Yeah, I mean, I can see centaurs definitely being territorial. That makes sense.
I'm starting to put a lot of this stuff a little bit higher than I normally would. Actually, I'll drop that to the 8, just because you're not running into one or two of these things, right?
No, and I mean, I think centaurs, they're not stupid, if I remember correctly.
I'd be actually pretty scared of centaurs.
No, yeah, I'm not saying that I'm unafraid of them. I mean, they're challenging too, and there's never going to be only one of them.
Yeah.
But they aren't like stupid. I think you could reason with one and like one wrong word and you're going to be fucked.
Yeah, and I don't think that like the Fey version, that like the tribal warrior version that are out in the forest have
Yeah.
a whole lot of sense of humor about shit.
No, I mean, I'm looking at their stats right now. They have an intelligence of 9. So I'm not saying they're stupid, but I think they take stuff very seriously.
Yeah.
Like the words you say, you mean type stuff.
So I'm looking at what we have. We have Darklings, but we're talking about daytime combat, so the Darklings won't be out in the forest.
Yeah.
Meanlocks, they are nighttime creatures. They've got dark vision of 120 feet. They've got an immunity to frighten condition, and they like hunt in the dark and the shadows. So
Oh,
we're not going to.
these fuckers. These are Fae? What?
Yeah, well, they're about as unseelie. The thing is, you got to look at the size of them, right? They're the size of like a small dog. And
Oh, okay,
run,
okay,
like,
okay,
6 or 8 of them at a
Yeah,
time.
I see it now.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I'm thinking, right, really quickly, because I see on the other side you have like trolls and stuff. Wouldn't like a Formorian kind of makes sense because they're just trolls, but they're fey.
The Fomorians are giants. Yeah, they don't have all the troll shit. They are fey, but they
What are their challenge rating before we go further with this for Morian 5e? Oh, it depends. Standard is 8, so that's maybe a little above. No, it's still tier 2 now, actually.
yeah, we can
No,
throw
it
Fomorian
was
in
just
there.
yeah, it was just a thought. Like we don't, because they are fey giants.
Yep, absolutely. I really like that.
And like it's not just like I'm just thinking because giants are they are around. Like I mean I have Goliath in the mountains, so it's not impossible that there are like the 1 or 2 giants still roaming around, and then you have, you know, the Fey Forest next to the mountain range. It's not an impossibility, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. And honestly, we have art in 5th edition of them traipsing through jungles. Like there are going to be dark parts of the forest,
Yeah.
right, as well, with like the canopy where these guys could easily thrive. So
Yeah.
that leaves us with Yeth Hounds, Redcaps, and Quicklings. Now, if I remember correctly, Quicklings are annoying as shit, but they're only a CR1.
Yes, I believe you are correct.
So you know how a lot of flying creatures have what's called the flyby attack?
Yeah, but they also have it, but they don't fly, right? That's what their thing is.
No, they've got evasion, which is essentially that they can make a dex saving throw to take only half damage, right? And they've got blurred movement. They don't have, I think, every time I've run Quicklings, to make them deadlier, because they have a speed of 120 feet,
Yeah.
I always give them the ability to naturally disengage as part of their movement.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
So that they run in from 60 feet away, hit you with their multi-attack, 3 dagger stabs, and then off they go again, and you don't get a hit back.
Yeah.
That takes them from a CR1 to about a CR2 and a half ish, right? So
Yeah, ish. Yeah, I agree. No, I like that. I like that. I might steal that.
I'm going to put down for a tier 2 party 4 to 6 Quicklings.
Yeah.
If we just use them as is, they will go down relatively quickly, but that it's not a really impactful. It's going to be annoying. They're going to be weirded out, but it's not super impactful. Yeth Hounds and Red Caps. I love Red Caps. Red Caps are very flavorful and are going to be a total pain in the ass to deal with. So especially if we have more than one. So if we do 3 Red Caps.
Yeah. Yeah. They have a nasty looking sickle.
But I also want to double up on red caps, and I would have a single red cap be one of the better ones to roll as well. So like this Fey Forest should be kind of disgustingly full of red caps, and that's why it's dangerous.
Yeah, I agree. Red caps, they remind me of like the Western gnome. Do you know what I mean? Like the red hat, small stature.
Yeah, I think there's supposed to be like a takeoff of that. So
Yeah.
Yes Hounds are my favorite thing about them. There's a throwback to Deep Darker Radiance is that they have baleful baying as one of their attacks, which is just an audio, like it's just a cry, right? So
these disgusting things are Yeth Hounds. Oh my god.
yeah, they got a face of a freaking elderly skeleton. And they're large size too. These things are as big as horses. So
they're fucking excuse me. I admit. Oh my god, they are large. Ugh. I don't like these guys.
I'm gonna drop everything down 1 so that we can put them 2 Yeth Hounds as number 3 on our list.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I don't want to fucking look at that in my dreams ever.
And what this
that's a good callback to Deep Dark Radiance. I've been listening to that recently again because, well, the Northern Lights that I witnessed were kind of scary when you listen to that in real play.
Yay! That leaves us with 1 empty spot, and this is where I would probably look to plant life. So something like blights or
Yeah.
like a corpse flower or something like that, right?
Speaking of a corpse flower, that was one of the answers on the fucking
on the DD trivia the other day. Yeah, I was so pissed. I knew it all, but then the trivia reminder came in just as I was going into a recording. I'm like, no, I know the answers.
I was looking at this question and I looked at that question. I was like, no way, it's just a fucking corpse flower, right? I like second guessed myself 5 times in that, and then I just decided to go with corpse flower. I'm so happy I went with it.
I'm going to put. Do you want to throw corpse flower in here?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
It's a CR8, and I think they punch outside of their weight class here, so I'm going to put it as the.
So hold on, it's a CR8. Fucking excuse me.
It's because it has 3 attacks in the multi attack, and it has bonus actions,
Oh,
and
I'm.
it turns dead things into zombies, so you're not fighting just it. Plus, it's
Oh,
got essentially
right.
an aura.
Okay.
So when you're beside it, you're going to take damage, right?
Oh, I see. I see. I see. I see. Okay. 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 Yeah. Oh, these guys are nasty.
Oh yeah. So,
Oh yeah. Okay.
so
Is that more or less deadly than a fucking tree ant?
treants are deadlier. Treants are deadlier.
Are they actually? Hold up.
Yeah, their stats are far beefier.
Tree ant. This shows how good of a DM I am. I don't know any stats whatsoever. No, I'm kidding. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. You know what? Fair enough.
Yeah, treants are what, a CR9?
Yeah, they're CR9.
But if you give them their full hit points, I think you're over like 200 hit points, if I remember correctly. And they're
Oh yeah,
eight,
you definitely are.
and they have an AC that's not going to be impossible to hit, but it will be challenging for a tier 2 party. So,
Yeah. And
plus,
animate trees. They can just animate trees.
yeah, yes,
What
they
the
can.
fuck?
And you deal with it. You start off round 1 with them kicking the shit out of you because they have the ability to, what's it called? I'm doing this all off the top of my head. It's like false appearance, where
Yeah, false
they,
appearance. While the tree remains motionless, it is indistinguishable from a normal tree.
yep. So if you ever lose sight of it, you will lose track of it, right?
Yeah.
So there we go. That brings us to the end of combat in the Fey Forest. So let's look at our Fey Forest overall. Okay.
Yes.
So just as a summing up, our exploration from friendliest to deadliest is a hot spring that removes condition effects and exhaustion. A flower that, when consumed, gives advantage on charisma checks. A deep cave with the inside of a sparkling geode. An empty Fey shrine or church. A random snowstorm in a concentrated area, small tree migration, a waterfall that flows backwards in time, an immovable idol or totem to an archfey, a large clearing with many small fairy rings, a portal to the Feywild, pollen in the air that gives disadvantage on con saves, and quicksand that saps 1 hit die each time you touch it.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty wild Fey forest. When you just litter in there the fact there's going to be big, bright, beautiful flowers, there's going to be clouds that seem to be swirling for no reason,
Yeah.
even though there's no wind. You're going to have a mist that hangs 13 feet in the air above your heads. Large trees that seem to be whistling. You're going to have strangers on the stranger tables, omens on the omen table, right? Items that you're going to come across that you can pick up that are just like, why is this here, right? There's a lot going on. And then on top of that, you might fight 4 to 6 boggles, 1 red cap, 4 to 6 quicklings, 6 territorial centaurs, a prank of 4 fairy dragons, 3 red caps.
I love that word for a group
Yeah.
of fairy dragons.
3 red caps, a blink dog versus displacer beast war, a herd of stampeding giant elk, 2 yeth hounds, or a fomorian, a corpse flower, or an incensed treant. That is a pretty fleshed out and fun list of random encounters to run across.
Yeah.
You mentioned, I don't remember if we said this on air. You mentioned that your guys that when you played, was it earlier today, they ran across a T-Rex, but they're level 3, and you were running it.
Fucking hell. Yeah, it was. It was just before we started recording. I had rolled on the Xanathar's table, or they rolled. I always make them roll so that I don't get the blame because I like deflecting like that.
I do the same thing, yes.
Yeah, and he rolls a 100 in grasslands, and that just happens to be a T-Rex.
So,
and I'm like, fuck. Hold up. This is a CR8. They're not too long ago from a big-ish boss battle. And I'm like, uh-oh. So I look at them and say, y'all better, I give them the DM like, you're not winning this. Like, you're not winning the fight. You can run away. You're not winning the fight.
I often put things that are above my player's ability to handle it on my random tables, so that when they roll them, it becomes an encounter that is beyond combat. If I were to roll a T-Rex, I would put that in the exploration table, and I would put it on there as you hear the roaring in the distance. You come across the footprints, right? Like the evidence of the T-Rex, and that
Yeah.
should have them running. And that's another part that I would like beef up the exploration. We didn't do anything like the sound of wind chimes that plays a consistent melody, or the smell of fresh bread being baked. Like there are some just like completely whatever, normal, nothing. This doesn't impact anything, but it's weird, right? Like
Yeah.
it's weird face stuff. We could flesh out a D20 table with that kind of benign stuff. But everything that we've added are things that they have to interact with. It's not just a, oh, by the way, you sense this, and that's forgotten 4 sessions later. They're not going to forget the waterfall that flows backwards in time, right? Or blank dogs versus displacer beasts.
Yeah.
So, and the goal here is to have memorable but not deadly encounters. So,
Yeah.
let's look at your Orcish Mountains.
Yes.
And what I'd like to do here is actually do it in the reverse order. I'd like to do combat first, because
All right. Yeah.
the exploration through mountain system, if we're not doing a whole lot of things that are magical, we can still do fantastical, like deep crevasses or high peaks and big
Yeah.
winds and shit. Like we can still do that.
See,
But a
now we're
lot of
speaking my language. Mountains and shit.
but the thing that we're going to be dealing with is largely evidence of other creatures, right?
Yeah.
So let's populate the creatures first.
All right. I mean, first and foremost, where you're going to find the mountains, especially like fantastic mountains like this, you're going to find mountain goats. I mean, I feel like, or even fuck it, make it special, giant mountain goats. I mean,
shall we fight a giant mountain goat?
All right, we're doing combat. I immediately forgot.
Hold on. I'm looking up the stats for giant goat.
Okay, well, I remember something called a crag cat from as well from Rime of the Frost Maiden. That's what it was. They live in like mountains and shit, and they're not something to scoff at, if I remember correctly. They're actually quite fun.
Yeah, give me 1 sec. Giant goats are CR 1/2.
I mean, that's not something to scoff at.
That's not something to scoff at, but I don't think it's gonna. I think that by the time the players are in tier 2 and going after the orcs, a giant goat is going to be dinner. It's not going to be a fight.
Yeah, I think we're looking at that more into the exploration
Yeah.
bit, maybe.
Craig Cat. Hold on, let me grab the book.
Yeah, no problem.
It's funny. I was looking at Craig Cats last week not last week, 2 weeks ago, because I ran my Christmas one shot where I had them go up against a cold light walker, and Craig Cats were on the next page, and I was like, "What the shit are these guys about?"
A cold light what?
Cold Light Walker. You need to listen to the Undead series. They are absolutely. I play mine to be super fucking terrifying. I don't know why I decided to do this. They're essentially they're undead that are like cloaked, and they've got like a furry hood on their cloak, and light pours out of this, and it like blinds people, and it hits them with a cold ray that does 4d10 plus 3 cold damage and a giant cone, and like it's gnarly. I've scared my players with it a couple times. They're challenge rating 5. But the thing that I do to make them so creepy is I have them always facing away from the party, and the light is off when they come across them. And of course, it's always blizzarding or it's cold, right? And then it turns around, and when the light comes on, it makes a foghorn noise. That's not canon, but it terrifies my party. They hear a foghorn in the distance. I go, one of these fucking guys.
You're a little bitch, you know that,
Adam. I just love the idea of the crazy foghorn. I think that's fun. Craig Cat is a CR1.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't remember their CR when I mentioned it. I just remembered that they were a thing in the mountains.
Yeah, I like it. You want to throw like 4 of them in?
Yeah, I was about to say, like, just a little family dynamic of crack cats trying to survive the harsh mountains. I mean, and they're essentially gonna do, they're gonna go for the smallest thing, and they're gonna try to run away with it. That's just, I feel like that's probably exactly what they're gonna do. They're gonna go for the halfling or the goblin or the kobold of the party just to try to run away with it. They're gonna pounce, grab, fuck off, because they're gonna traverse these mountains easier than the players are ever going to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's look at the combat for this, because we're dealing with orcs and things that work with orcs, right?
Yes.
I added ogre to the list. So it's funny, I had to take out all the Volo stuff because most people don't have access to it, right? So there's all sorts of good orc stat blocks in there that can be used for random table, but I kind of crossed those off the list and said we're not going to until we see what the new monster manual brings us or whatnot, because
That's fair.
it wasn't included in the Monsters of the Multiverse, and I know that they're in development of the new monster manual, and I know the new monster manual has over 400 pages of monsters. So I
Holy
noticed
shit.
that we didn't have any of the extra goblins, bugbears, hobgoblins, orcs, gnolls, kobolds. None of that shit made it into Monsters of the Multiverse. So I'm sitting here going, are they going to give us multiple stat blocks in the new monster manual?
They better.
I hope so, because orc and orc war chief is not enough.
Yeah, I agree. That like that's why I personally have all those, is because it puts so much depth into some of these creatures.
Yes, and if you have Volos, you can absolutely like beef up this to a D20 table. But let's
Yeah.
focus on the shit that people are actually going to have access to.
Yes, I agree.
I do include the Orog in this. I mean, you can read my notes here.
Yes.
I included the Tanaruk, which is
Love a Tanaruk.
the demonic orc creature. The
Yeah.
Orok, which is essentially their battle bulls, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. I included ogres, and then I threw trolls in. And the more I look at trolls, the less I like them, because they're just not orc, they're gnoll, right?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
And because like a rot troll's not going to hang out with orcs. A venom troll might, a regular troll might, but I had to take spirit troll off the list and dire troll because they're too high level. I didn't include the mutator troll or the troll amalgam because nobody's going to have access to that book, like which I believe was the Shattered Obelisk. So
yeah, I don't even have that book, and I have most of them.
yeah, and so like I'm trying to focus only on the monster manual and
Yeah.
Monsters of the Multiverse, right? And so when I'm looking at these, we don't have a whole lot of options. So
No, which is a shame, because this feels like the cornerstone of D&D, orcs and you know, well, yeah, it feels like the cornerstone of fantasy, not D&D's. I apologize, because when I think fantasy, when most people think fantasy, you're gonna think Lord of the Rings.
it's
That's
elves
just
and
how it
dwarves and
is.
orcs, right?
Yeah,
That's the
that's
thing.
just how it is. Or
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings is the cornerstone of fantasy. That's just how it is.
So we can take a look at this and say, all right, we're only ever going to run into one Tanaruk because they're unique creatures, right?
Yes.
So, but they are a CR of 5. We're doing tier 2. So I would have a Tanaruk at about, if you roll a 4, you run into a Tanaruk with orc handlers.
Yes, I agree. I'm also thinking that, because Tanaruks are not going to be alone, because like they're either, because in the lore they're either tools that the orc warlord or war chief uses, or they become the war chief.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm also looking at the other things we have. You wanted to keep the Korid in this area. I'm going to
Yeah.
put him at number 3 because it's a CR7.
Yeah.
I want to put Venom Troll at number 2. It's a CR7 as well, but it's a nasty surprise for people when they're just used
Yes.
to regular trolls. And then I would have, for the worst possible option on our combat table, even though it's tier 2, would be 3 trolls.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Now, I just want to address this really quickly because I think a lot of people forget this. A troll is a CR5. I added 3 of them for tier 2. Tier 2 maxes out at CR10.
Yeah.
Right? Or a level 10, right? So in theory, this should be CR15, but that's not how CR works. The way that it works is for every additional creature you add, you get diminishing returns on the CR until the action economy is completely blown out of proportion and it's hard to even guess what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, with 3 trolls, you've got to remember that by the time that these guys are level 9, like your party of 4 adventurers are level 9, they're probably going to know how to kill a troll, and they will fucking kill the first one in round 1 because they'll blow all the big spells. So it's really 2 trolls against a slightly diminished party, right? And when we start to think of it in those terms, you realize that the combat itself is not nearly as deadly as you thought it was until you start adding other factors in, like environmental issues, right?
Yeah.
So I would also put a single troll at like a 9 on our list.
Yeah, I can see a 9. I mean, it could all depend on when the party really rolls is. Are they fresh out of a long rest? Then the troll is going to be no problem. But if they're like already been to 2 encounters, it's gonna be a hassle.
Yeah. So we've got 6 spots left. We've filled up half of our D12 table, and we've only used orcs once. The other thing that clearly is going to be here because the Goliaths are around are going to be stone giants, but stone giants are pretty neutral, and I feel like you're
Yeah.
going to get more mileage out of them as strangers.
Yes, strangers, or even just, well, barely an exploration, but I could see them, like, you could see the, like, similar with a T-Rex, like we talked about earlier. You're gonna see evidence of them before you'll see them.
Yeah.
So you would refrain from going in their direction because you don't know, because they're so neutral. You don't know what type of mood they are. Like, if this was a frost giant, you would obviously stay away.
You know what I want to do, Andri, is I would like to remove the Venom Troll off the
Oh, yeah.
list because I would like to bump the trolls down. And I just remembered the other thing that's in the mountains, and that is vertical height. And I would like to add, wait for it, I would like to add a rock.
Oh shit! Isn't that like? Hold on, Adam. Isn't that like an insane CR?
No, although it's a gargantuan monstrosity, so it's fucking huge, it's only a CR11
Oh my god! Why in my head was this a way higher CR?
because it's gargantuan, because it's got
Yeah.
a
You know
ton
what?
of
That's
fucking
fair.
hit points.
Yeah. Do you know what? That's fair. That's definitely why. But
It,
yeah, I like that. I like that idea. I do. It's just going
so,
to act like a golden eagle. It's just going to pick you up and drop you, isn't it?
or take you back to its nest to feed you to the other ones.
Well, yeah, that's not any better, I suppose.
Which, by the way, I use Wyvern stat blocks without all the crazy poison shit or any of the lore. I just reskin Wyverns
Yeah,
to
I
be
remember
rock
we
hatchlings.
we went about this in one of my first episodes when we were talking about dragons.
Yeah. All right. So now we have orcs, and I think the orc war chief, as much as I like it, and it's giving us our best stat block, I don't think you randomly run into an orc war chief. I think that's a set piece.
No, that's a set piece that you're like, oh, you run into him migrating his war band like to another camp.
Yeah. So that leaves us with CR half orcs, and then Orogs, which are the big, beefy, like bruisers of the orcs.
Yeah.
The Orok, which is their battle bull, and ogres, which will be around them as well, right?
Yeah, but not to forget Orogs, not the bulls. They're not stupid either. Just because they're bigger and beefier, they're not dumber. They're
No,
actually smarter.
yeah, they're the like apex orcs, right?
Yeah, it's
So
it's Orc Prime. That's what they are.
So I'm going to take a look at this. We have 4 different creature types. We should just start mixing and matching them to fill out the rest. But let's have a purpose for them. For
Okay.
example, the combat, like the easiest combat when we roll an 11, should be an orc scouting party of like 6 orcs. That's going to
Yeah.
be like a CR 2.5. Your tier 2 party is going to go through them pretty quickly, but it is a combat that should happen as you're entering orc territory, right?
Absolutely. They're scouting the fringes of their territory to make sure they're not being either ambushed by another orc war band or God forbid the party.
Right. So the reason, if you'll notice, the most I ever do is 6 creatures in any one of these random encounters, because anything more than that, you're fucking with the action economy so much in order to get an advantage against your players that things are going to get weirdly swingy. If your guys don't hit for a couple of rounds because their dice suck, you could end up in a death spiral. And also combat takes forever. I tend not to do more than 6 in a horde unless it's a set piece that I planned for, right?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have one of those players who cannot hit for shit. So
Yeah. Ours is Casey, who decided to be an artificer paladin, which is absolutely great for her character. But my God, she cannot roll above an 8 most games. It's insane.
Mine's the barbarian.
Oh yeah, see, just as bad.
Yeah.
Let's put orcs and aurochs, because aurochs are not smart.
No.
Right? So orcs and riding aurochs in like a mountain pass where these aurochs can charge and whatnot.
Yeah.
And let's do 3 orcs on aurochs. 3 and 3.
Yeah. What is Aurochs are CR2?
Yeah.
I've forgotten about that. That's written so wrong, but Google will correct me. Thank you.
It's funny because I want to say, hold on one second.
These, if I were to put a real life creature to this, these look like muskox on steroids.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's exactly what they are. Did you also know they're real creatures?
Oh, I think so. Hold on.
They're just
Yeah, these guys.
they're an
Yeah.
extinct, like hairy, woolly cow,
Yeah,
right?
they're an extinct bovine. Yeah,
So
I've forgotten about that. They are 180 centimeters at the shoulder. What the fuck?
they're not little guys.
That's as tall as me.
And I love that in the Monsters of the Multiverse on D&D Beyond anyway, it's just under cattle. They've got a whole bunch of different kind of cattle, and like this is just one of them. And it's their gore attack that makes them so deadly. I don't think they actually deserve CR2, except they can knock creatures prone,
Yeah,
which gives advantage on the next attack, right? And when you're dealing with
yeah,
orcs, I would have the Aurochs go first and the orcs go second. So the Aurochs are moving. And I know that this is not how mounted combat works in 5th edition, but then you can get that knocked prone, and then with the pike or whatever, the orc hits them from their mounted position, right? With
yeah.
advantage. So shit like that.
I
So
mean, even then, they, I mean, they don't have a multi attack, but you knock a player prone with that charge, and then another one either gores or hooves the downed player. This is not a small amount of damage these fuckers are doing.
I really dislike the fact that they don't have a hoof attack.
Oh, no, they do. They have a hoof attack, or attack. They do. I mean, according to at least what I'm looking at, they have a hoof attack. Maybe it's a little homebrew thing, but they absolutely, if they don't officially, they absolutely should.
Not according to D&D Beyond and Monsters of the Multiverse.
Yeah, well,
Hold on.
who listens to Wizards of the Coast, really?
Are you looking at the Volos version? Because I know the stat blocks are different.
I very well could be, and that could definitely be the difference. Yeah, I am. It says so here. Yeah, I'm looking at the Bolo version.
Oh no, not even that one has a hoof attack.
Oh, then I'm looking at a homebrew thing. Why is it? Why does it say Volos here? I'm just looking at a homebrew thing, and somebody decided they should have a hoof attack.
They should have a hoof attack, right?
I mean, yes. I mean, have you been kicked by a cow, Adam?
No.
No, neither have I, but I know people who have. It's not fun.
I would assume not. I would steal a hoof attack from one of the horses. There are a couple like there's war horse stats
Yeah.
and stuff.
I've been like not gored because cows in Iceland rarely have horns, but I've been like knocked down on my ass by a cow, and then we're just talking regular cattle here. It hurts a lot.
I wouldn't recommend it. I watched my brother nearly get trampled by a horse when he was like 6. We went to some ranch. We're gonna do horseback riding, and I was like 9, and he was 6, and one of the horses got spooked and knocked him over, and then
Ooh.
like the hooves of like 3 different horses came down all around him and just narrowly missed him over and over again.
Fuck, I'm imagining this was like bigger horses because here in Iceland we just have the one horse, and they're not big. They're not like any other horse in the world is bigger, and I'm just imagining that. Yikes!
Yeah, it would have killed him. Like it would have.
Oh,
But
yes.
when one of the handlers ran forward to like pull him out, he got kicked by one of the horses, and he was a grown ass man that got tossed feet, and like he went to the hospital. They broke ribs. So
yeah, it's not. Moral of the story, dear listeners, don't fuck with farm animals.
100% yes. But farm animals are all scary, especially the chickens.
Bro, the chickens are some of the most aggressive motherfuckers I've had to deal with while living on a farm.
Right? Everyone talks about how aggressive Canadian geese are, and I'm like, have you met chickens?
Yeah, exactly. These chickens are crazy, bro.
Fuck.
And they got claws. They don't have that fucking goofy ass things that geese have. They got claws without the fucking webs. They'll fucking fly at you.
Yeah, they're coming at you with like 8 little fucking knives on the bottom.
Yeah, no, it's fucking crazy. Sheep aren't any better. I've been rammed by rams before. That hurts.
Well, I mean, that's on you. I mean, it's right in the name.
Shut up, Adam.
All right, back to random encounters.
Yeah.
We've got 4 empty spots. I'm thinking Orogs because they're smart. If we put in a group of Orogs, let's say 5 of them, as
Yeah.
something real scary. We should also do orcs and orogs and orcs and ogres,
Mm,
right?
yeah, I agree. I agree.
Let's do orogs 2 and orcs 4, and then ogres 3 and orcs 3, and then we can do ogre 1
Yeah.
and orcs 5.
While you're writing that one, all I can imagine is Boromir just going, "They have a cave troll."
Yeah, right. So this is a whole lot of orcs, and we're consistently hitting 6 creatures over and over again.
Yes.
I would, in the moment, based on how long it's been since we've been in combat, based on the time of day, like how fatigued my players are. If it's early in the day and we haven't really done combat in the last session or two, I might throw 10 orcs at them instead of 6, just to like get the aggression out, give the
Yeah.
barbarians something to do. But if it's late in the day and this is just random encounter, I may actually cut it down to like only 4 orcs, get a few easy kills in for a win as we move on to
Yeah.
the next plot point, right?
Yeah. Actually, just really quickly, when you do your rests, do you allow them? Is it just one D&D day and they get a long rest because you throw so many encounters in, or do you go over like a week?
I don't understand the question.
Okay, so in my game, the games I've played with my DM, how we did it, he made random encounters be over a week instead of one day, so that we would actually get somewhere in the world. So over the course of 7 days, we would have 3 common encounters and 3 environmental or role play encounters, and because we would use resources across those encounters, because it said in the DMG or whatever book it was, there should be like 6 encounters.
6 encounters in an adventuring day. Yeah. And
Yes.
you can only have 1 long rest per adventuring day.
Yeah. Do
If
you
you're
run it
traveling,
as the book says?
yeah, as you travel for 2 weeks, that is a fuck ton of random encounters.
Yeah. So we decided to tone that down, and we put that day into a week.
So I don't disagree, but I kind of randomize it a little bit more.
Right.
What I do is I actually make them roll for how much time has passed as well.
Ah,
What,
okay. Okay.
what I do in my random table is I have if we're doing overland travel and my world is large, so it does take weeks to get from one place to another, they roll a
Yeah.
d8, or sorry, they roll 2d4 because you only get 7 options out of 2d4. You don't, because you can't roll a 1,
Yeah.
right? So you get 7 options. That's up to 7 days pass at a time. And then I have them roll some d8s. There are a couple of like re-roll options on that because the math isn't perfect, but they've got a couple of d8s to figure out how many days how many hours have passed as well. And then they've got whether or not they roll, are they resting or not, right? Or are they actively
Right.
doing something? And so what I do is I get them to roll based on I'm adding hours. So I essentially have a calendar really quickly in my head that I go,
Yeah.
okay, we're at noon on this day. They roll 4 days and 17 hours, which puts us at this time on this day. And it turns out that this is in the middle of when they would normally be sleeping, so they're at rest. I just don't even make them roll on that last table. Or
Right.
it's the middle of the day, or it's about to be dusk. If it's about to be dusk, they're actively doing stuff to prep for the night, whether
Yeah.
it is set up camp or take a watch on the ship or pull up the nets or whatever it is, stop to feed the horses and lash them up to a tree, whatever it is, they're active. So depending on what time of day they land in, I will automatically choose. But sometimes if it's just the middle of the day, they will roll for it and figure out if they are resting
Right.
or if they are actively moving or trying to get something accomplished. And that way it randomizes if they consistently roll. If I've got a 3-week period and they roll 1 day and then another day and then another day, and we do like 4 days of combat, I'm going to give them a fucking break. And everything
Yeah.
else after that, when they roll, because they also roll to find out what kind of encounter they're going to get.
Right.
So they don't often run into combat. It'll be talking with allies, or they come across an item or whatever. I've got a percentile table where there are percentages of how likely is going to run into things. And again, it's different day versus night. It's different how close they are to civilization. But I don't want to do the same thing over and over. I fucking hate ship travel because when you're on a boat, your random encounters are the same fucking thing over and over again. Someone notices something over there. It's either coming towards you or you're going towards it to investigate. That's
Yeah.
it. There's nothing else that happens. Ship encounters are you are getting boarded or you are boarding something else. Even when it's a sea serpent that's not technically boarding you, you're standing on the deck in a single spot, making
Yeah.
dex saves every time the ship gets hit as you fire off your ranged attacks. Over and over and over, rinse and repeat. This is all that we do with our random encounters in combat. I tend to get a little bit more creative. I put ghosts on most ships and stuff like that just to make it interesting. But like, no, when it comes to how much time we spend between random encounters,
Yeah.
I'm reading the table, and at some point I just say, you have gotten far enough that the bandits that surround, the civilization that are on the outskirts of civilization, you've passed beyond them now, right? Or you're no longer in goblin territory. Or I will have it that or I will force them to come across another group that's traveling in the same direction. And now creatures are not going to fuck with them because they're too large of a group, right? So
Right. Yeah.
I remove that aspect of it. But I tend not to do more than 3 or 4 random encounters at any given time, except for when I'm DMing one-on-one.
Yeah, okay. That I just wanted because I'm used to obviously week by week, not day by day. So I was just wondering how you did it. And thank you. That's actually really thought out the way you have it.
Well, I mean, you know me, I love my tables and my spreadsheets. So
yeah, you've also been DMing for a while.
I've discovered that when it comes to random encounters, I have 3 players at my table that fucking love them and 3 players that are indifferent. So we get a lot of random encounters, but it depends on the momentum. If they are actively hunting down the villain by chasing, if you're chasing the Urukai to get Merry and Pippin, you're not going to stop to go fight some fucking Craig cats.
No. Yeah, okay, yeah, exactly.
Right. So the random encounters like disappear into the background. I'm in a chase right now. Random encounters are meant to make the world feel full.
Yeah.
If the world already feels full or we're focused on something else, I don't need to do it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the last table we're going to make today, Orcish Mountains. We're talking exploration during the day.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do for this one, as opposed to the Fey Forest, is I'd like to only throw in a handful of like physical features and have other things just be evidence of the orcs and trolls and ogres and stuff in this area.
Yeah, and throw in maybe 1 or 2 Goliaths evidence. That's just me though.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's focus on the physical features of this mountain range, right? And again, 12 is the most beneficial. 1 is the worst. So
yeah, I'm trying to think of what the hell could be beneficial in a mountain range. Being someone who lives half of his time in the mountains, the only thing beneficial is the fresh air.
Well, a clear and obvious place to make camp, right?
That's fair. A safe cave or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could even like poke around and find that other people have made camps here before, right? And there might be some things that find. Firewood is already stacked up in the corner of the cave, right? Like that kind of shit. Another beneficial thing that they could run across would be a obvious, easy to get to scouting point, like a lookout point.
Yeah, like they're it's like off of a cliff. They're not too fuck. I'm trying to translate directly from Icelandic because we have so many fucking words for this.
Yeah, like up on an outcropping that like
outcropping. That's the one. Thank you.
Yeah. So the real negative ones, I would have a crevasse where the bridge is out.
Classic.
Maybe that's not the worst. Maybe I'll put that at like a 3. The worst would be something like an avalanche, but I feel like we got to plan that shit out.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like especially with an avalanche, you're dealing with rocks here. It's not like you can like with a snow flood or like a snow. I'm saying snow flood because that's what it's called in Icelandic.
It's just an avalanche.
I'm thinking rock slide. I'm thinking in English it's rock slide, isn't it? That's what I'm thinking of.
We could do like a minor rock slide.
Yeah, I'm fucking confusing languages now. Fuck's sake.
A minor rock slide, because there are avalanche rules in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And I used those during my Christmas one shot actually. So
There's also in fucking Frostman.
yeah, and I think they're the same. I think it's a reprint.
Oh,
Um,
probably. I
but
just remember it from Frostman because I was running it the other day.
but I would do a minor rock slide, something where it's going to be like dex save, and if you fail, you get
Yeah.
pushed 13 or 30 feet, and you take such and such bludgeoning damage, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not going to be the intensity of the 150 feet, the wall of snow of an avalanche, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. And then the worst possible thing that could happen would be for an exploration. Actually, that one's pretty fucking bad. We could just leave those two as being like the big negatives.
Yeah, I mean, those aren't like things I would want to come across when I am in my mountains. I feel like
Another negative would be whipping wind, but the wind is not necessarily going to push them. It's just going to like take one level of exhaustion for every 6 hours you spend in it. Like it's just
oh yeah, I feel like you're being generous with the 6 hours though.
I'm being really generous because I know my players and they will all fail their con saves.
Oh, do you know what? That's very fair.
And again, if it's a set piece where I'm trying to force them into a place that they don't want to go, I'll make it every 10 minutes. If it's a random encounter that I'm just supposed to be slowly working at them and hitting them with attrition, then it's every 6 hours I got to make a con save, right? But they'll travel
Yeah,
for a couple of days. Someone will be like, oh, if I give them this heavy cloak that I got 12 sessions ago, would that give them advantage? Fucking sure. Yeah, man, go nuts.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, absolutely. I mean, being someone from such a windy fucking place, wind can be fucking exhausting. Not just physically, but mentally as well. You're hearing all of that noise just going around in your ears constantly. It takes its toll.
come on now. There we go.
There we go.
So those are some big negatives. Let's talk about the creatures that we have. One of the things that you could find, and I'm sitting here going like, you could find evidence of a rock by finding like these massive feathers, but those would be really cool spell components, and I'm gonna make that an item, right? That's on my items list.
Yeah.
So trolls. Trolls leave behind
I mean, to be
half
honest, you're just gonna leave it behind
half-eaten
half-eaten
carcass,
carcasses. Yeah, yeah.
right? Of a humanoid.
Ugh.
What else? Coreds aren't going to leave a whole lot of. They're kind of ambushy because they can camouflage.
Yeah.
What about the site of an orcish ritual? If they are, this would be how I'm teasing the fact that there's a Tanaruk around.
Oh, like a demonic orcish ritual, not even to like their like not to Groomsh or whatever the fuck the other ones is called.
Oh yeah, they've got a bunch of them. I'm gonna go play D&D later today, and I'm actually playing an orc
Oh,
who worships Shargos, the night
oh,
lord. So I'm pretty excited about that. We can have let's talk about Goliaths.
Goliaths.
How about Goliath?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you're finding an old camping ground because they're herds. They move around a lot. They're never in one spot. Oh, a totem. I just saw what you're writing. A totem, yeah.
A Goliath totem that's indicating safety.
Yeah, I like that.
We can also have a Goliath totem indicating danger. Right? If I okay, I know I put that as 2 entries, but I'm gonna put it as 1.
Yeah, indicating either
Safety
or.
or danger as I need as a DM, right?
Yeah.
So we've got a rock. I don't want to just randomly come across a nest that feels like a set piece. Trolls.
I also feel like you're finding a rock nest at the peak of a
Yeah.
mountain. You're not finding it where you're walking.
Yeah. Evidence of trolls. A half-eaten fucking Goliath is pretty trollish. Orcish ritual. We can have an abandoned orcish camp.
Yeah. I feel like you could go a similar way with Goliath because they are herds, like they're constantly moving. Or what about I feel like this could be like a funny exploration. Just a herd of wild orcs. Like you're gonna
Like
have to fucking you're gonna have to like either well you're gonna have to avoid them. They're gonna fuck you up because in the fucking lore they say they have a wild temper.
Yeah, but you're gonna see them from a distance.
Oh, you're probably gonna smell them before you see them, but
Well, there's that too, isn't there? We have 2 empty spots.
ooh,
What do we want to focus on? We don't have anything for ogres, but I don't really feel the need to do that.
No, I feel like ogres. They hang around with the orcs. You're not gonna find. I feel like
Um,
you're the distinguishing factor between them is mostly just the size.
mhm. We can have a what about a staircase carved into the mountain by stone giants?
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot actually. But it's like proportionate to them, so
Yeah.
your players are gonna have to fucking scale them.
Oh, there's athletics checks involved. Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
We need one more factor. What else lives in the mountains that we're gonna deal with?
Um,
We had a random snowstorm in a concentrated area in a fave forest. It's not out of the realm of possibility that you would have a random snowstorm.
Absolutely fucking not. It's definitely in the realm of possibilities. Love snowstorms. It's funny actually. Do you remember? You remember on Discord when I sent in the fucking snowstorm just outside of my fucking balcony?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I then went the next day, went on top of the glacier in a fucking snowstorm, and it was even wilder. Why? Because money.
Money.
Money will make you do crazy things, y'all.
So, Orcish Mountains. Let's look at it. For
Yes.
exploration, we've got a safe cave to make camp,
Yep.
lookout point, Goliath totems indicating safety or danger, a random snowstorm for a portion of the day or night, a herd of wild aurochs in the distance, an abandoned Orcish camp, a
Mhm.
staircase carved by stone giants, the site of an Orcish ritual,
Yeah.
whipping wind that gives exhaustion with a con save every 6 hours, half-eaten carcass of a humanoid from a troll,
Yeah.
a crevasse with a broken bridge, and a minor rock slide.
Yeah. The fun stuff.
And then for combat, 4 Craig cats, 6 Orc
Mhm.
scouts. I'm going to end up saying a partridge in a pear tree by the end of this. 3 Orcs and 3 Aurochs, 1 Troll, 1 Ogre and 5 Orcs, 3 Ogres and 3 Orcs, 2 Orogs and 4 Orcs,
Yeah.
5 Orogs, which I think is actually a lot deadlier than we might be anticipating if
I
you
think
play
so.
them
Yes,
smart enough.
absolutely. I think it
Yeah.
might be.
Tanaruk with Orc handlers, Kored, just one, 3 Trolls, or a rock. Now,
Not a ROCK, an ROC rock.
yep. So it's worth pointing out as well that we should be filling this area full of other evidence that's not just random. We plan that they're going to see this kind of orc design that's
Yeah.
drawn in charcoal on the side of a flat cliff face, right? But it's 5 stories tall and it is the hand of or the eye of Groomsh or something, right? Like we should be
Yeah.
littering the area with other things like this just because we've done our prep.
And I
This
mean,
is
yeah,
more stuff.
you're going to find feathers from a rock because this is just a huge bird with a huge area.
Yes, and we haven't touched on the fact that I'd also be making a table for strangers and how
Yeah.
allies are interacting with this environment, what the omens are that you might see in these areas, what items you might come across. You're going to come across ropes just hanging, just blowing in
Yeah.
the wind, right? From people that have tried to scale the mountains in other interesting ways at different times, right? So you're gonna find this shit out there. So not to
Absolutely.
mention orcs and Goliaths and everything else for
And
set
yeah,
pieces.
and bearing in mind, this is just tier 2. I mean, one of the biggest things you can find in the fucking mountains in tier 4 is a fucking ancient red.
Oh yeah, we didn't touch dragons in this
Yeah.
episode. We did fairy dragons, but like that barely counts.
Yeah.
We didn't get into the dragon factor. And
We
again,
could have absolutely thrown a little dragon in those mountains.
if I was doing a percentile dice, like a D100 table,
Yeah.
red dragon would be you roll a 1. And
Yeah.
evidence of red dragons would be every, 13
Yeah.
potential options, right? So, anyways, do you have any final thoughts about this or anything else you'd like to go over before we wrap this episode?
It's just the fact that we actually struggle so much with the Fey bullshit because there's so little in D&D. It's a fucking crime, honestly.
It's a crime, and I'm hoping that it is fixed to some degree in the new monster
Yeah.
manual, but I'm not hopeful.
Yeah, I mean, it's just coming from a culture with such a rich background with elves and like Fey-ish things. It's honestly, it's a little. It's not just a little. It's very underwhelming to see how little there is. Whereas you have like way more with like the demonic stuff because that's traditionally more like. I'm not trying to bring religion to this, but like Christian-esque.
Yes.
And like,
You want to know?
it's just a huge shame.
I thought that Wild Beyond the Witchlight was a really cute little story, and I actually really like it. But it was also a wasted fucking opportunity to deal with the Fae.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree.
Because short of like this carriage has butterfly wings and this guy has a unicorn horn, it was all just hags and hag nonsense, right? Like there
Yeah.
wasn't Fae. My players are desperate to go to a arch Fae court to deal with the Seelie and Unseelie, to have some definition about what is happening with Titania and Oberon in the Feywild. Like they want to deal with
Yeah.
that, or end up in some sort of like Fomorian cave and dealing with like a Fomorian society, a small village of them. What, like, how do you deal with this? There's no fucking information and
Yeah.
in fifth edition about any of this, and it's disheartening for my players, and I've got to do a lot of heavy lifting. And the damn problem is I don't know enough about the Fae. I could do some research. I could spend 12 hours doing research, but I guarantee that Megan and Casey and Mieka have all read enough Fae romance books about, A Court of Thorns and Roses or whatever it's called. I think I got that right.
Yeah, you probably
That
did.
what I come up with is not going to live up to what their expectations are.
No,
So
yeah, exactly. And it's especially with this where you're looking at, I mean, it is canon because in the Forgotten Realms pantheon, you have Tyr, you have Surtur, you have Thrym. Like these are Norse-ish deities, and it's like in legends in this mythology, Tyr actually deals with elves, both in Norse and out of Norse mythology.
yeah, and yet
And he's just the god of justice. That's all he is.
I I think that if they were to do a proper look, if you can sit down for dinner with Strahd, then you can navigate the role playing for dungeon or dragon heist, right?
Yeah.
If you can do these things in other modules, we should have had a fake court by now. It's
Absolutely.
fantasy. What the fuck? Why are we not doing that?
I mean, and even though they don't like go, my like folklore, Celtic folklore, because this is side rant. This is what is weird about Iceland. Icelandic elf folklore is a mix of Irish and Norwegian. So like it is just a fucking clusterfuck. I mean, even if you just went a little Lord of the Rings with it and you just go went, Elrond's court. That is, I'm not gonna call it Fae, but come on, just a
I mean,
little bit.
yeah, look, give us something. I got
Yeah.
a question. When was the last time that we had a module where we went into a elven city?
Have we had that in 5e?
I don't think so.
I don't think so
I
either.
know we've been underground in dwarven areas and with Duragar. I know we've been with Drow, but like
With Drow, with dragons in some aspects.
we've dealt with powerful elves on councils and stuff
Yeah,
or
but
in cities, but we haven't gone to an elven city, right?
no.
It just feels like we don't have enough lore supporting the Fae. This is my problem with them going setting agnostic in the monster manuals. I feel like we're losing a lot of lore. However,
Yeah.
I also acknowledge the fact that they're giving us a Forgotten Realms campaign setting book later in the year, as well as a player's guide to go with it. So 2 books, one for players,
Okay.
one for DMs. I really like that model. I hope it's not Sword Coast Adventures Guide. But I hope they're not just going to give us another fucking Spelljammer box set about it, right? And actually give us a dense 300-page lore book with how to
Yeah.
run monsters differently and how dwarves are different in this fantasy setting than the standard one, that kind of shit. I want that. That would be really, really useful.
And it's not like they have a lack of inspiration in the world. This is the fourth time I've said this on this podcast. Icelandic folklore is so rich with these bullshit stories.
It's not even that, Andri. They can go to 3.5. There were so many books about the Forgotten Realms that are
Even
just like
then,
campaign settings and adventures. The information is there. They just need to recompile it, and they just won't. And I don't understand why. So,
is this the fifth tirade we have went on about Forgotten Realms? No, Wizards of the Coast.
you know what? Between you and Robert, I get a lot of ranting about how shitty the books are. I actually really like most of what Fifth Ed has to offer. I want more of it. That's my
Yeah,
problem.
I agree. It's just the things that I'm noticing is, of course, things that are really close to me, which is like Fey lore, Fey folklore.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm not saying that that isn't prevalent in other countries, but like most of like Icelandic poems or literature, they not they talk about or mention elves, so they're all around me at all fucking times.
It was funny because Dave was over here the other night and
Yeah.
we were talking about elves and he said the only question you need to ask about elves is what's better or what kind of elves do you put in your D&D? The Santa variety or the Keebler variety? I'm like, Dave, get the fuck out of my house. So yeah, I could go on a rant. You want okay, here's my last rant before we wrap the episode up.
Yeah.
So they're not doing Dark Sun, and they never will because Dark Sun is problematic as all hell. It's Conan the Barbarian, but it's just full of slavery and everybody's hard limits on stuff. It's also
Right.
super deadly, and magic is different and weird, and like a lot of people want to play in that Conan the Barbarian setting, but it seems to come with a lot of problematic shit.
Right.
In the history of the Forgotten Realms, and I think Greyhawk as well, our serpent folk people, like our lizard folk, our Yuan-Ti,
Yeah.
our like not kobolds, but like there are a bunch of these that have ancient elder gods that these serpentine creatures used to rule the world, and
Yeah.
humans were like in nomadic villages that would like run to escape them as they got hunted across the desert back when magic was raw and cities and castles didn't exist yet except for these like stone forts to hold
Yeah.
back the ancient evils. This is part of the look. Why not write that shit? Give us
Yeah.
that module. People would eat that up, that harsh
Oh yeah. Oh
barbarian
yeah.
landscape. It will give us all the Dark Sun flavor without the Dark Sun problematic lore. And you can dig into all the crazy old gods, the fact that magic is different, the fact that steel is rare, all that shit. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. There's my rant. Anyway, is there any personal social media or projects you'd like to mention?
I could shout out. Oh, my TikTok was open. I didn't realize that. Sorry. Since I'm trying to reform it, I can shout out my own Instagram finally now after years and years of neglecting it. My personal Instagram is my name Andri and then Snow14 if anybody wants.
Why 14?
Because that's my date of birth, 14th of December.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
It's literally it. It's just a lucky number.
Look, fair enough.
It's all lowercase, by the way. That should be stated. There are some beautiful pictures of Northern Lights there now because I had a fucking wild experience with those this New Year's Day. But other than that, no. I just if people want to follow me there, you can. I might actually have to put I might have to change my account now that I'm thinking about it, but that's fine.
By the time this episode comes out, it's not even active anymore. You've changed it.
No, it's a private account. I'm just gonna unprivate it. That's what I mean. Otherwise, I'd have to accept like a bunch of people. I'm not bothered to fucking accept people.
It is so funny every once in a while when you find out, like when I'm doing one of these things and I find out the weird, unique ways that everybody's their own fucking personal nightmare to themselves.
Yeah, bro, I've been my own personal nightmare since the day I was fucking born. Having ADHD has been a fucking nightmare. Okay.
All right. So that's all for this discussion on random tables. Thank you, Andri, for choosing this topic and for workshopping your homebrew and for
Yeah.
supporting the Patreon.
Of
And
course, it's my pleasure.
thanks to everyone else for listening to another episode of the It's a Mimic podcast. If you'd like to support us, we have a donate button on our website, itsamimic.com, a store with some It's a Mimic merch, and obviously a Patreon. This episode and others can also be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and most other podcast apps. Thanks again for listening to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get.